Didn't some early Christian churches who were located outside the Roman Empire develop different canons for their Bibles than the 66 eventually agreed upon by the Proto-Orthodox Church? For example, doesn't the Ethiopian Church accept 81 books as sacred up to this day? It appears the standard canon remains fluid even now, since Protestant and Catholic Bibles differ, while Luther debated whether to include James and Revelation in his German translation. Even today, with the 1940s recovery of the Gospel of Thomas, some scholars wonder whether it should be added to the canon.
Well, it's a complicated question. And there are churches with different canons. That's true. But it's a question what it means when one says that it's fluid, because in none of these communities is it fluid. In other words, in the Protestant tradition, when you have 27 books in the New Testament, it's true that other traditions might have, other books, but the Protestant tradition not fluid. You're not going to start finding bookstores selling Bibles with, you're just not. And so the reality is the canon was never fixed. People have this idea that there was a vote at the Council of Nicaea or something, or that the Emperor Constantine decided when the canon was going to be, and none of that's true. There never was a vote. The first vote ever taken on the canon by a worldwide church council, I'm talking about a worldwide church council, was the Council of Trent in the 16th century. It's the first time any major council took a vote on the canon. And they were voting because they wanted to include the Apocrypha, because the Protestants were rejecting it. And so I wouldn't say that the canon is fluid. I would say there are different canons in different Christian communities. That is absolutely true. And I'll say, by the way, I've decided now that I finished writing whatever book I was writing, my next major book, I'm thinking about doing a book on the canon, because it's and probably a popular book on the canon as well, to explain to people how all this happened, because it's the question I get almost more than any other. How do we get this? And I think there's not really a book that I can refer people to that I think is really a popular book that I like. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of conspiracies about this issue, and I think it's necessary that someone sticks with the facts, shows what happened, give us the case. But oftentimes in this field, I do hear an apologetic is that, early church fathers already had a situated, steady canon that they used from Justin Martyr, onward. They were all using what we have as the New Testament. So they're making
this true. It's not true. Just not true. It's false. And historically false. Yeah. Demonstrably false.
You're going to show it. You're going to show this.
Not much to show. All you have to do, like anybody who does any research at all can show that's not true. It's just not true. So I'll tell you, my first article that I ever published back in 1983, so near 40 years ago now, was dealing with one aspect of this problem. What scholars had long said was, and scholars still will say, even though it's wrong, is that the canon wasn't fixed at the Council of Nicaea, but that the canon was fixed by Bishop Athanasius in Alexandria, Egypt. In the year 369, he wrote his 52nd festal letter. The festal letter went out every year in order to establish. Never mind. It's a letter he wrote every year to his churches. And in this letter, he listed our 27 books of the New Testament. And he said, these are the books of the New Testament. Boom, 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 boom. And it's our 27 books. And scholars always have said that's when it's 379. And that's when it was fixed. And so my first scholarly article, I mentioned earlier, Didymus the Blind. Reading through Didymus's writings, I realized that he had a larger canon. There are books of the New Testament he thought were parts of the New Testament that were not in Athanasius's list. And he and Athanasius were living at the same time in the same city.
Wow.
And so I showed, so this is an article I published in a European journal, and I just showed that Didymus had a different understanding. And so Athanasius did not settle the canon in the year 379, and it never was completely settled because these different churches have different things. So these people who say that it was established in the 2nd century, it's just completely bogus. It's not true. You can show it's not, because you can see we have lists of which books are in the canon from after Justin that have different books. So how can you say it was fixed?
Wow.